Good afternoon. I guess I could say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to a number of you. As I've seen on our registration database, that we've got people literally from all over the world joining us today. So thank you very much for giving up your time to come and find out more about the blended learning MSc Financial Management at Alliance Manchester Business School, part of the University of Manchester today. Firstly, I'll introduce myself. So my name is Chris Healy. I head up MBA and MSc recruitment across the suite of blended learning programs at Alliance Manchester Business School. I've worked across blended learning programs for over 15 years, and we've got a wealth of experience of working with professionals at all different levels as they embark on master's study whilst working full time. I'm delighted to be joined today by our MSc Financial Management Program Director, Susanne, who I will pass over to as she will introduce herself now.
Hello, thanks very much, Chris. Yes, I'm Susanne Espenlaub. I'm a professor of accounting and finance here at Manchester Business School, Alliance Manchester Business School. I've had the pleasure now to be the program director for over a year, and it's been a really, really great experience. I'm also one of the founder academics who's been involved in actually setting up the program from the start. So literally, we're talking about my baby here. So I'm excited to talk about this and look forward to our webinar.
Excellent. Thank you, Susanne. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to have more of an informal conversation with Susanne, asking some pertinent questions that we think many of you will be interested in hearing the answers to as you are conducting your research across a variety of programs, no doubt. And that will last for about 25 minutes or so, and then we'll also hand over to you. And then if you do have any additional questions to ask, then there will be plenty of time for that as well. But in order to get us started and to set us off today, Susanne, would you be able to introduce the program, the MSc Financial Management, to the audience, and also perhaps maybe give a little flavour as to the type of individuals that will tend to enroll on this course, please?
Yeah, thanks very much. So yeah, I'm keen to talk about this, obviously. Let me also first of all share a few slides here, because it does help, particularly when I'm talking about the structure of the program. It's just easier then to see that. So first of all, we're going to move my. So again, about myself, I've been professor of accounting and finance here for quite some time. I've got teaching experience of almost 30 years. Similarly, research experience. My own research is in corporate finance, broadly defined, so really financial management, a lot of areas. I have done research and I have done teaching in those areas. And the same is true for all of the faculty who teach on our program. Let me just show you a bit about where our students have come from in the most recent cohort. So the stars on this diagram that you see here are where we have actually recruited students. And the red dots show you the study centers that we have. So obviously, the MSc-FM is taught, essentially, it is a global program. And it's taught not just out of Manchester, but it's also taught out of 5 study centers around the world. And you can see those centers. So we've got Manchester, we've got Dubai, then we've got Singapore, we've got Hong Kong, and we've got Shanghai. And you can see where our students have come from. Obviously, we've got quite a lot from Europe, the UK, Middle East, Africa. We've got some people from Latin America and from North America. And then we've got quite a number of people as well, also from East Asia. So it is a very diverse program, and that is obviously one of the main selling points of our program. That is the diversity and the global perspective of this program. So just to give you an idea of also where our students have come from, our program is essentially a conversion program, which it's aimed at people who have a first degree and potentially a bit of professional experience. Neither the first degree nor the professional experience need to be in finance or economics particularly. However, we do recommend ideally that students who apply for our program should have something of a quantitative background, or at least they shouldn't have a fear of quants, because of course finance is essentially a quantitative subject. Of course, also our program is aimed at students who want to basically build a background in finance in order to either start or progress and develop a career in finance and financial services. And so again, if you work in finance and financial services, you do need to be, you need to be happy dealing with quants. And so what we're looking for really are people with a sort of an analytical background, an analytical mindset as well. So it could be people who have studied sciences in the past, chemistry, biology, or computer science. As you can see, we've got quite a number of students who have worked already in financial services, accounting, banking, or in consultancy. But we also have students who come from other backgrounds like healthcare or engineering, for example. So imagine someone who's worked a number of years in engineering and originally did an engineering first degree, and now wants to maybe move into a more finance related job. So for example, become, CFO of an engineering company. So that might be the kind of individual that, our program would suit. And looking at the students that I have taught now, we've now already graduated 2 cohorts on our program. So our program was set up originally in 2020. And last December, our 2nd cohort have graduated. And when I spoke to those students, and I teach as well on our program, I teach the one of the units, the course units in the final semester. So when I spoke to the students who have almost finished our program, they told me many stories of basically how they moved through their career, basically on the basis of studying on our program. So a number of students, they might have worked for one company and actually got much better job offer on the basis of just studying on our program. One person, moved into a much more senior position in banking. Other people are involved already in fund management and, again, moving into more senior positions. But we've also had people who've moved from outside finance into the financial services sector, again, on the basis of having enrolled on our program. So typical average years of working, you can see here, it says 9 years of typical work experience. Now, that is not requisite. We don't require people to have, 5 or 10 years of work experience. Definitely not. Our program is also open to individuals who've only just graduated and who are embarking on their professional career. So you don't have to have work experience. However, typically we would say our students are probably in the sort of early-ish middle stages of their careers, their professional careers. And of course, on our program is a blended program. So students study part-time while they're working full-time. And with it being, the program being blended, it means that it is taught both online, but also in person. And we'll talk more about that later on, I would imagine. Let me just quickly show you the structure of our program. And that also then takes me through to why we should, you should study at the MSc Financial Management. So this is sort of a diagram that shows you the courses that you would do in your first year and your second year. So it is a 2-year part-time program. As I say, you study while you're working full-time. It's structured into semesters, and the first semester starts in September, the second semester starts in March. Typically between semesters, there's usually about a 1-month break. So the first semester you'd start in September, and the final assignment deadline would be in January. Then February, you have a bit of time off, and then you start again in March. And the final deadline for submission in the March semester, in the second semester, would be typically in July. So let me just take you through this. So we start off with 2 courses that essentially set the scene, but they are by no means introductory courses. The courses Accounting Decision Making and Financial Decision Making, they are already courses that are in and of their own right, important courses that introduce you to the important key academic and practical concepts and methods in accounting and in finance. So these courses do set the scene, but they are not just simple introductory courses that you would get from, I don't know, if you did the CFA, for example, or you did introductory courses in finance previously, or you had done some sort of professional exams in accounting. You would not necessarily be prepared for the courses in the way that we teach them here. So one example here is that my own research is, among other things, on initial public offerings. And initial public offerings features very importantly in financial decision making. In fact, the module, this course unit is taught by someone, you could even call him Professor IPO. He's a person who has actually written a book on IPOs, and together we have researched extensively about IPOs. So that is a very, very important, interesting topic. How you can raise finance for growing companies. And we, of course, developed this sort of theme throughout the program. So it also links with a program, with a course unit that we have right at the end of our program, which is venture capital and private equity, which isn't, of course, another, it's about another area of raising financing for growing companies. And this unit is actually taught by someone who's it's actually taught by venture capitalists themselves. So these are people who either have retired as venture capitalists or are still working as venture capitalists and are teaching on our program. So we have a very, very kind of diverse faculty to teach you, but all of them have extensive teaching experience, and many of them also have relevant professional experience. So when you move to your second semester, you can see that we elaborate on the theme of corporate finance, but we also throw it open onto the sort of global perspective when we talk about global financial markets and institutions. And that theme of global markets is developed further in the third semester when we look at international financial management. Both of these 2 courses, global financial markets and international financial management, also look at risk management as one of the key topics that they look at. You have financial statement analysis also in the third semester, which develops further on the key sort of accounting aspects and methods that you need to know in order to be a fully rounded finance professional. Then in the final semester, you have venture capital and private equity, and I spoke about that. And as well, another course is business models and financial strategy, which is a course that I developed specifically for this program. In fact, most of the courses that we have in our program here have been specifically developed for this program. They're not just course units that we've taken from other programs, but they have been specifically designed for the needs of the students that we are aiming this program at. So in business models and financial strategy, we look essentially at how you can set up a new venture, how you can develop a business idea and develop a business model, and how you can finance these ventures both in their startup and their growth phase. And so it is essentially the partner course to the venture capital and private equity module, except when in the VCPE course, we look at it from the perspective of venture capital providers of finance, whereas in business models and financial strategy, we look at it from the perspective of entrepreneurs. So in both courses, we look at how you start up businesses, how you develop and grow businesses. But we look at it from complementary perspectives. Another thing before I hand back to Chris, and I'm sorry I've taken up a long time, I want to also talk about our research courses. And there are 3 research modules that accompany our program. In your second semester, you'll be introduced to data analysis and statistics. In the third semester, you'll be developing that into a background on econometrics, so how you use quantitative methods in order to help you make sense of financial data and to analyze financial data in order to be able to inform your decision making. And those are important, essential skills widely used in finance. In the final semester, you have a dissertation. That's a group-based dissertation. And the topics will be very practice-oriented as well. They'll be very real-life based. You'll typically be asked to write, it's a quantitative dissertation where you'll be applying the skills that you developed in research methods courses. So you typically will be collecting your own data, or you might be given some data, but you certainly need to know how to process the data. This is real life financial kind of data. You typically for a large sample of companies, so you might get, a panel of share prices for 100 companies. You then have to process this data and you have to analyze it and actually draw out real life actual lessons that are important for real life companies. So that is where I hand over. Again, I'll sort of stop sharing now. And I'll come back. Hopefully I've answered your questions and I've gone a little bit too far as well.
That was great. Thank you very much, Susanne. And actually a couple of points that I'll probably pick up on from what you've mentioned. Yeah, absolutely. With the average in the current class is about 9 years of experience. But I'd echo what you just said about you don't have to have that experience. Yeah. I've had 5 meetings over the past 2 weeks with people who are either just about to graduate from their undergrad and people who have got less than 2 years experience. So I think it's quite a good breadth of individuals on that program, some with little to no experience, some with the average of 9 years of experience, as you rightly pointed out, and then others with even more experience than that. And that brings me maybe to the next question. You went through our MSc Financial Management Blended Learning course there in some detail, and I think some individuals will also be considering full-time study. And of course, we've got a hugely successful full-time MSc in finance here at Alliance Business School. Just again, to help the audience, because some of them might also be thinking of the full-time option, how does the MSc Financial Management differ to our full-time MSc in finance?
Yeah, so obviously we do have a very successful suite of MSc programs that are full-time, taught on campus here at Manchester. Those programs, some of them, the MSc in Accounting and Finance is a very, very prestigious program. It's been established for as long as I've been teaching at Manchester. Not much longer, though, mind you. I've been here a long time. So it's been established for, over 25 years, basically. And I have taught many years on that program. So basically, I'm very well informed about our MSc programs. What I have to say, really, with those full-time programs, the purpose of a master's program, when they were first set up, was to train people to do research in finance and to become researchers, academic researchers, typically in finance. So most MSc programs, most full-time MSc programs, the original purpose was to train up our doctoral students and for the students then to basically move on, or at least a good percentage of them to move on to our doctoral program and then become academics. That's obviously changed over the years, so obviously even now the majority of our MSc students will not become academics, sadly. But there is still that flavor that, the emphasis is on research and academic rigor, right? So it's academically motivated, very strongly academically motivated, our full-time MScs. On the other hand, the MSc of Financial Management aims to combine academic rigor with clear, real-life, practical relevance and practical applications. So it's not designed for people who want to go off and do a PhD in finance and become academics. It really is designed for people who want to study our program and then go back in a professional context and develop a professional career, a non-academic career in finance and financial services, financial markets and related areas. So that, I think, is the key difference. I mean, obviously, an obvious difference is that our blended MSc FM is part-time. You study part-time while you're working. And I think that changes the nature of your learning experience fundamentally, because as you go through your studying, you can see immediately how and where you can apply the concepts that you're learning, because you're working in a professional setting potentially, and you will be seeing these issues popping up. There'll be questions. Well, how should we finance our firm? Should we do some risk management? Should we hedge against foreign exchange risk? Those sort of questions will pop up in your professional life, and you'll be able to link those immediately to what you are actually studying on our program. So you then, you might actually be taking a course on global financial markets and institutions, while maybe you're considering working for a company in East Asia. You might be thinking, okay, I might be applying to a job in an, I don't know, an investment bank or an investment fund, working abroad. And so what you're learning is immediately applicable.
Yeah, I think some great points there, Susanne, with regards to maybe some of those benefits that you get from studying on a blended learning course, and being able to work full time, earn a salary. And I think it was really interesting what you said there from the research perspective on full-time MSc or traditional full-time MScs versus that practical real life experience that you get on a blended learning course, where you can, of course, as you rightfully said, actually often apply some of the knowledge that you've learned in the classroom into your jobs immediately without having to wait until graduating. Another thing you mentioned in my previous question was you spoke about one of the academics who has a very strong focus on IPOs. We had one academic who worked in industry with a venture capital background. How do you begin to almost curate the right sort of academics for the program as a whole? Does everyone have that industry experience? Do you try to balance that industry experience with a strong research background?
Yes, so basically our academics, all of them, what they have in common is that they are all very experienced and very successful teachers and educators. So all of them have 20 years typically or more of teaching experience, teaching qualifications, and often are nominated for teaching awards. So we have excellent teachers on this program. A number of them, a good number, I would say, over half of them have real life professional experience. So this could range, as I said, from venture capital, wealth management, investment banking, accounting, and so on. So there's a broad breadth of real life experience that our academics have. As I say, not all of them do that. I think the rest who, like myself, I haven't actually worked in a senior executive position in finance, but I think the rest of us, we all are very established researchers, and a lot of our research is very practically oriented. So obviously, as researchers, as at a top university in the UK, we all have to publish regularly, and we have to publish in excellent journals, world-class, world-leading journals. So all of the researchers who teach on the program will typically have that kind of research excellence, world-leading research that, and in many cases also it's immediately relevant. So as I mentioned, Professor Kershid, who does the financial decision-making course, he's written the book about IPOs, but he's also done a lot of other research. He's published in top world-leading academic journals, and together with me, incidentally, but also on very practically oriented topics. So for example, we've recently published a paper about private debt, which is a relatively new phenomenon, or at least no one has known much about this before. There's a recent kind of attention on private debt because it is essentially organized like private equity funds. So private equity is basically better known. It's a form of financing to more mature companies in the sort of growth and later stages of development, but it's for companies that haven't yet got access to stock markets for their financing. So private equity is relatively well understood, but what's not so understood is that these private equity providers are also providing debt. So they're also providing debt financing. And so we've actually looked at exactly how this private debt financing works, what kind of companies are private debt financed, how this private debt is structured, how it performs in practice. Interestingly, one of our students on the last cohort actually ran a private debt fund. And so it was very interesting to compare his real life experience with our research. And we found many commonalities, and we're very, very excited to kind of now potentially conduct some joint research, which draws very, very closely, very, very close on real data from, immediately data that one of our former students can hopefully provide us with. So yeah, it is basically our research where we are researchers. We do very relevant, practically relevant research. It's not the sort of research where you wonder, oh, what is this about? With none of our papers, you would ever wonder, oh, how is this relevant? You'd always realize, yes, that's really, really interesting stuff. It relates immediately to, for example, capital raising of small firms, executive remuneration, corporate governance. We've got some other papers on debt renegotiations. So it's very, very practically oriented research.
Great. Thank you very much, Susanne. And to the audience, Susanne's very modest as well, because what she didn't mention there is that research was actually published in one of the top 50 research publications in the world, which is an amazing feat when there are, you know, thousands of publications available to be published in, and to have one of our academics published in the top 50 is a fantastic achievement. I've also, to the audience as well, by all means start typing some questions into the Q&A box. Some people have already started doing that, and actually they've been asking about the face-to-face element, which I'm going to come to you momentarily, to Susanne. And I think before I do that, I think one of the important things for everyone to be aware of, in terms of the philosophy at Alliance Manchester Business School, the University of Manchester, when someone studies for an MSc or an MBA, you study for that one qualification, and we don't differ between full-time and blended learning when it comes to the qualification. The qualification is a Master's in Science from the University of Manchester. And one of the ways that we've been able to ensure that same quality standard and that same academic rigor is through having these face-to-face residential periods. It would be very easy for us to have a 100% online course, but it's something, you know, driven by the likes of Susanne and some of her colleagues. It's something that we've veered away from, and we want to ensure that that face-to-face element is in the course. And on that note, Susanne, you know, many of our students will always say, you know, workshops are the highlight, of the residential periods are the highlight of the course for them. Can you maybe give a bit more of a flavour to the audience as to how, you know, maybe a typical week looks like, what happens during these residential periods, please?
Yeah, so the workshops really are the highlight of the program. For each of our units, remember I had showed you the structure of the program earlier. So when you start in your first semester, you have accounting decision-making and financial decision-making. Those two courses is what you study for those first 6 months. Those courses will have their workshops right at the start of the semester. So you'll have a three-day workshop for each of those units. So essentially you have 6 days of workshops for those two courses. So what typically would happen is that you will have, well, in those courses you won't have any preparation to do, because they happen very, very early in the semester. But in some of the workshops later on in the semester, they happen typically at the middle of the course. So in my course, it happens in early May. So in my course, you would have some assignments to prepare that we then talk about more in the during the actual workshops where we meet. Let me talk about my workshop actually, because it is very, very case-based actually, and I think that is typical for a lot of the workshops. So there's no, you know, long problem sets of, you know, weird kind of calculations you have to do that we're not quite clear what this is all about. No, that's not the case at all. So in my course, we have 3 case studies, and we talk in the workshop, we talk from one case per day. We look at a case where you advise someone on setting up a new business. You develop a business model, and you try and really kind of think about, you know, give advice on what should be in the business model, whether this is actually potentially a profitable business model, how it could be improved. And you do this in the context of different settings. So we start, one example is just a simple kind of a fitness gym. You know, we start off with that, a sort of a gym type setting, but then we move on to a fintech business. And fintech is actually a theme, financial technology. So technology-enabled financial services is a theme that we have in some of our courses, particularly in my module on the 4th in the fourth semester. And so what we look at there is the case study that has been written up about a real life fintech business and how it was first developed, how they first developed their business model, how they tested that business model, how they made sure that this was going to be profitable, and how they then implemented that business model. We also then talk about how you can pitch your business to investors, and there'll be some role play, so there'll be some everyone gets up and actually gives a proper pitch. So you have like a minute to do this kind of a speech of what is the great thing about your business model? Why should a venture capitalist provide financing for your business? So we have an element of role play and a very close interaction as a group. It's all very, very friendly and informal. We typically have groups that are quite small, around 20 students. So there is plenty of opportunity for interaction with academics. So we all know each other's names. And not only do you have this opportunity to interact with the academics, or as I said, a lot of our academics either have, really relevant research expertise, or they have practical professional experience. So not only can you actually interact with the academics and ask them during breaks, you can ask them any question, of course, anything that's relevant to what you want to talk about. But obviously during the workshop, we have a sort of more focused discussion. But as I said, it's not only the academics that you're going to meet, but you're going to meet the other students. And that is probably one of the most valuable aspects of our program, that it gives you the opportunity to meet up and to network and become friends, very close friends, with people from so many different backgrounds, both in terms of professional backgrounds, but also in terms of where they are based in the world. So it's a really valuable networking opportunity to, reach out to people from the other side of the globe, with whom, you will probably be friends potentially for the rest of your life, but you might also find that, you have potentially valuable business ideas that you can develop together. So many valuable networking opportunities that you get only during these workshops, and only because you're physically together in the same place.
Excellent, thank you. I'm sure Fernando, Hassan, and Marielle will be very happy with that answer, because they did touch on workshops in their questions. I'm going to answer a few more of the questions that I've seen in the Q&A before I come to you in 2 to 3 minutes, Susanne, with my final question to you. But I'll also pick up on your point there about networking, because we've also had a question about the wider University of Manchester network. Well, University of Manchester, it's the most applied to university in the UK. We're the biggest single site university in the UK. So when you think of the pool of alumni that we have, it is going to be one of the largest in the UK. Over 500,000 people have graduated from various degree programs at the university. So of course you are part of that alumni network, but I do think what Susanne has been speaking about over the past minute or so is potentially the most key thing, because that network that you get on the program is certainly your core network. Of course, you'll still have the University of Manchester and the Alliance Manchester Business School name behind you to reach out to those individuals who may have graduated 5-10 years ago. Absolutely, we help to facilitate those types of opportunities, but I think the real key of your network is that cohort that you would be studying with. In terms of some other questions that I'm seeing, Melissa, you're speaking about the CIMA qualification and whether that would be enough to cope with the technical and quantitative courses on the MSc? The clear answer to that is yes. If you have a CIMA or an ACA or ACCA, you will be in a very strong position to equip yourself with the quants that Susanne has already mentioned today. By no means do you need to have those professional finance qualifications, but it's certainly going to help you if you do. I would say, based on the statistics that I saw from last year's class, I think it's about 15%, no more than 15%, Susanne, who already have accountancy qualifications. So the vast majority are not qualified accountants, for example. Do you think that's fair, Susanne?
I think so. I think that's true, and I completely agree with what you say. It's helpful probably to have this, but definitely not prerequisite to have professional qualifications. Also, having professional qualifications, while it will help you, I wouldn't advise that you kind of think that, oh yeah, I've heard all of this before, I'm just not going to pay attention to the first two courses, or maybe even the financial statement analysis course. I mean, there is a different angle that our accounting faculty take to accounting. Accounting is very much a social science to them. And they view it very much in that kind of light. So it's not, if you have done an accountancy course before and you know something about bookkeeping, it doesn't mean that you can kind of just skip that first accounting decision-making course. There will be a lot of material in there that will be new to you. So it's not just sort of like accounting or bookkeeping 101 basic introduction. It's not like that at all.
And then just a couple of final questions, but by all means, to the audience, if there are any more questions, by all means, type them. I've got a couple here that I'm going to answer before going back to Susanne for closing remarks. Someone is asking about the MSc Financial Management and then using it to go on to a PhD. Now, as Susanne mentioned earlier, this is very much a practical, real life type of course, and is not necessarily built in the traditional full-time manner, which has been built for people to go on to do PhDs afterwards. So yes, in theory, it's possible. Yes, we've seen one of our students go and do that, but it's not necessarily something that Susanne, myself, and our other colleagues would be recommending. This is very much a qualification to help you in industry, and I would see it that first and foremost.
I agree. Sorry, Chris, I was just going to say, I completely agree with you. I mean, if you're very welcome to just write to me if you have questions about this one, because obviously I've supervised something like 30 or 35 students on their PhDs. So I'm a very seasoned doctoral supervisor. I think the way that our PhD in finance has developed has become very quantitative, and there will be areas, particularly in asset pricing, that you would cover in the MSc Accounting and Finance, and particularly in MSc Finance or MSc Finance and Mathematics. So the sort of more really quantitative parts of asset pricing, we would not go there on our MSc Financial Management. And so there might be that area that might be missing somewhat. So what I would say is, if you're interested in a PhD in finance, then write to me and I can advise you something further. If you're thinking of doing an MSc in a related area, something like MSc in international business or MSc in management, then that's probably easier. Kind of oddly, financial management lends itself maybe a bit more to those, just in terms of how those doctoral programs are now structured. Because in the first year of a doctoral program, you now have to take courses still, And as I say, there are some asset pricing courses where maybe some of our MSc financial management students might struggle a bit. So that's the only caveat, really. Sorry, Chris.
No, that's great. And then the final question that I will answer before I pass over to Zan is about the workshops, and we've got a audience member that's asking about why they're mandatory. Now, just to reiterate about that, as I mentioned earlier, our philosophy at the business school and the university is that you graduate with the exact same qualification, whether it's full-time or blended learning. So the reason that we've built these these workshops into the courses is we want to ensure that the program still has the same academic rigor and the same quality standard and quality assurance as our full-time course. Susanne and myself will always recommend that people attend 100% all of the courses. There is some leeway where you could attend 80%. So it is possible to miss. Again, very rarely will people ever do that because they come to Manchester, or they go to Dubai or to Shanghai or to Singapore, and they're blown away by the quality of the academics, the quality of their fellow students. So it's not something that we ever want to encourage, but that option is there. But as I said, that's also a reason why we've not moved to a 100% online MSc. There are 100% online MScs available at different schools, etc., but it's not something that we believe in. And then my final question to you, Susanne, is, what do you think? Would you summarize maybe the top 3 benefits for students who are considering enrolling on the online MSc financial management?
Okay, so that you're taking me a little bit unawares, because I hadn't realized that I needed to know the top 3, because there are so many benefits, obviously. I mean, one thing also to bear in mind with we hadn't actually pointed out is, the standing of Manchester as a university and Alliance Manchester Business School as a very, very prestigious business school. I mean, it was the 2nd business school in the UK. It's very, very well established. It was set up in 1965, so it'll be 60 next year. It has a real, global brand name that is just, preceded. So again, also the reputation of the Alliance Manchester Business School is also, I think, cemented by the fact that it's got triple accreditation. So there are 3 top accreditation bodies in the world that accredit institutes of higher education, and all 3 have accredited Manchester and Alliance Manchester Business School. So this sort of triple accreditation is very rare. I think it's only about 1% of business schools who have this, and Alliance Manchester Business School is one of those. So I think the sheer reputation, the huge alumni network, the brand name, it's very, very sellable. But also, as I said, it's the network that you build with your peers on the program. I think they're probably among most valuable thing, and that's why I think the question of whether these workshops are mandatory, I think in most cases doesn't even occur, because everyone just wants the workshops to continue. I mean, that's just so much fun apart from anything else, that at the end of these workshops we usually kind of get together, we take loads of pictures, the students all kind of organized to go out and socialize. It's just such an amazing experience that I think if we didn't have it, it wouldn't be the same program at all. So I think the networking, the connections and the experiences you'll gain for life, I think, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Susanne. A couple of final questions have just come in, which I'll quickly answer. Regards to scholarships, what we've decided to do on the MSc Financial Management is to offer all our offer holders would receive a 15% bursary off their fees to help them with the costs. And with regards to the application deadlines, you have until around June time to submit your applications. Of course, you know, I would suggest trying to apply sooner rather than later, just because it gives you more time to prepare as you embark on master's study in the future. Also, you know, I can see in the audience, as I mentioned at the start, we've got people from all over the world here today. So if you do want to have a one-to-one consultation with myself and my colleagues in Manchester or colleagues in Dubai, Hong Kong, Singapore and Shanghai, we will be delighted to facilitate that for you all. And we will follow up with an email allowing you to book a consultation if you'd like to have maybe a wider discussion. So on that note, thank you very much from me for attending today. I hope you found the session insightful. I think Susanne gave some really strong answers there in terms of the program and real insight into our MSc Financial Management. So thank you as well, Susanne. Any closing words from you before we wrap up?
No, thanks very much, Chris, for hosting this. I mean, it's been really interesting, and I just look forward to meeting many of you in Manchester or in one of the other study centres. Bye-bye.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Goodbye, everyone.